Okay, we're going to go ahead and set the float needle in here to set the float height. So you've just got a little tang on your float here. There's a really small spring on the top of it. You see the spring? See the little spring? That little spring just fits over that tab. And then we're just going to set it down in the needle there, or in the body. Give it a little jiggle, helps. Okay, if you notice that the pin's in there, our float is extremely low. So we're going to need to adjust that out. It should be about 425 thousandths. We're going to make it, it's actually got a range like 413 to 470 or something like that. So we're going to set it about 450 up. So basically it needs to be down here somewhere. So right now, if you use that, the float's going to shut off. It isn't going to have enough fuel in it. So that'd be a low fuel level in the bowl. The higher it is, or the lower the number, the more fuel that goes in there. So it's extremely high right now. So I'm just going to take my little screwdriver and bend the tab. So you can zoom in there and see it. So all we're doing is we're going to bend this tab right here. So it actually needs to come this way up. Okay, so that's still too high right there. Need to bend it a little bit more. That's about still way too high. Now what you want when you're checking it, that little bit of movement there, that's your little piston pin on top of the float needle. You don't want it depressed any. So you kind of hold the carb about a 45-degree angle and measure it, and you can see how far off it is right there. So let's bend it a little bit more. Almost. We're still off a little bit. That looks pretty good right there. And I'm going to check it on both sides. Make sure that everything's level. And since we have a range of, I'll put a note of the procedure in the video here somewhere. I've got a couple of clips I can put in there of a chart that actually shows what numbers are supposed to be. But that's it for the float. That looks pretty good to me. Now, what happens if your float's too high? As far as this way, if it's too high, say it, you set it right there, which is going to be too high. It can actually flood like that. It'll give a rich condition. Versus if the float's too low, say it's like right there, it's going to give a lean condition because there isn't enough fuel in the bowl. So either way, too rich or too lean can be affected by float level. And really, that's about it. Something needs to be checked. Now, if you're dumping fuel out, if you're dumping fuel out of the bowl, it's usually because of the needle, not necessarily the float height. It's usually a dirty seat or worn out float needle. Now, what can happen? Let me show you on this carb here. In extreme circumstances, your float seat, I've seen them before where they're no longer round anymore. It'll be like grooves cut in the side of them where it's just like worn out. And visual inspection can tell you if you see pull the needle out and you see grooves in the side of the float body, thing, then it's worn out. On some carbs, they're replaceable. On these, they're not really replaceable. So basically, you're looking at a new carb. On the earlier three-sided valves, they tended to wear it out more than the four-sided. So they wouldn't seat. But usually, if you take, I've already cleaned this one. If you take a Q-tip, cut it off and put it in like a handheld drill, and use a little polish to clean the seat up. You just go in there and spin it around with your drill, and it's going to polish the seat area. That helps. What happens on some of these things if you just try and clean it with carb cleaner, you have a really fine film of basically crap where the needle seats in here, and it ain't going to seat. In other cases, I've had them where you pull everything apart, your fuel line's delaminating inside, and you pull it out and look down in the chamber here, and you look all the way in the seat, and you'll see little pieces of rubber in there. You can usually blow them out and get them out of there. I've had them where there's been a little O-ring or whatever stuck in there. Blow it out real good. As far as rust in your gas tank, you need to treat it. You probably need to recoat your gas tank if you got rust in there. Even you put a filter in there, what you'll see, even with a filter, the rust is so fine that if you pull the float ball off and look down in there, and you have a little red mist looking stuff, not mist, a little red tinge, and that's rust. And what will happen is it'll come through the filter because it's too small. The filters aren't that fine. And it'll collect in the bottom of the float bowl, and it'll mix with whatever, and eventually it'll congeal into little pellets, like little teeny pellets. And you'll go and it'll try and suck them up through the main jet or suck them up through the pilot jet. And you clean it out and clean it out and clean it out, and it keeps happening over and over and over again. And it's because the tank's bad. I did one last year for a guy who just was having a problem like that, but he kept pulling it apart and cleaning his float bowl out, and it had this black crap in there. I mean, just like little fine black stuff. And he'd already replaced the lines and cleaned the tank out how many times. And what was happening is that was on a Buell. What was happening, the inside of the gas tank was delaminating. And it was going right through the filter and collecting in the float bowl. And it was trying to suck that stuff up through the jets. So it'd be running fine and going down the road, and all of a sudden he'd go to get on it and it would lose power. It'd start backfiring, spitting, and carrying on like the carb was blocked, because it was. It was trying to suck up these little balls of black plastic, because they would form into little bigger pieces, just like frost would. And the only thing that fixed it was brought me the tank, and I recoated the inside of the gas tank. So there's that. Hope that helps out. I'm going to go ahead and get ready to stick this thing back together. At least put the float ball on it. I've already got my 185 main in there, or actually 186 that I drilled out. Got a 45 intermediate. Still got to put my air fuel screw in there. I've got a nice adjustable one to put in there, but that's next video. So this one was just setting the float. You guys have a fantastic weekend, and we'll carry on. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks new subscribers. Thanks for anybody watching. I appreciate all of you. Take care. Have a great weekend.